Okay, thanks everybody for joining us this morning. So this is an online Q&A for Pendle businesses on getting back to business, plus training and support. So I'd like to introduce our panellists to you. So we've got Paul Foster from the Federation of Small Businesses. We've got Hassan Ditter from Pendle Borough Council, Catherine Fogg from Pennine Credit Union, Jonathan Frank from Tax Assist Accountants, and Karen Brown from Boost Lancashire. So as part of this Q&A webinar, we're going to have a brief introduction to the support that Boost Lancashire are offering businesses at this time that can help businesses move forward. So Karen, would you like to give us an introduction?
Thank you, Rachel. So Boost is Lancashire's business growth hub, and in this current situation, we've changed our focus from growth in supporting businesses who've been affected by the coronavirus pandemic. And in March, we launched what we're calling the hashtag Ask for Help campaign. It's available to all Lancashire business owners, whether they're trading business to business or business to consumer, it doesn't matter. We're here to help all Lancashire businesses. There's two ways to get in touch. You can either call 0800 488 0057 or visit the website www.boostbusinesslancashire.co.uk, and on the website there'll be a section called hashtag Ask for Help, and there's lots of advice and information in there for businesses. We run at Boost a business relationship management service where we can put the public in touch with the business relationship manager to help them navigate all the business support that's out there and the different grants and loans that are available due to this pandemic. So it's well worth giving us a call and take it from there, really. We'll do the rest. Okay.
So what kind of support have businesses been asking about currently, Karen? Sort of the accessing the services that you...
Yeah, so typically a business will call us up. They don't really know where to turn. So we've got a dedicated team who'll take the call, and there's lots of different things. People wanting in the main to know about what support is out there in terms of grants and loans. And in a lot of cases, they're delighted with the answers because the government have put a lot of support in place to help businesses. So there's lots of practical help and advice. Our business relationship managers have, walked the walk, talked the talk, so they know exactly how to help businesses out there. So it's beneficial to give us a call and be put in touch with the business relationship manager. And like I say, we can do the rest from there, then share the information and steer businesses in the right direction.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks very much, Karen. So we'll go on to the questions. So we've had people submit questions. There are quite a few people who aren't able to join us today. We are recording this, so we're going to send it out afterwards to people. So if we go on to those. So question one for Hassan. I shut my business down when the lockdown was announced. Can I reopen my business now?
Hey, so in terms of, obviously when the lockdown was announced, a number of businesses did close. The government guidance hasn't really changed. It is as it was when the lockdown was announced. So all those businesses that aren't deemed as essential, the guidance is as it was before. You cannot open at this stage. I know we've had instances in Pendle this week where a barber wanted to reopen, even though he'd purchased all the PPE, but the guidance has not changed. What you will notice is that some of the businesses that closed initially are reopening, but they are more the essential businesses. So, for example, if you've got a business that's selling hot foods, you can reopen. There was no restriction on closing. So you may notice as you're out, a few of the, for example, on a national scale, McDonald's, KFCs are reopening. So again, on a local, on a Pendle level, we've noticed that as well, that the smaller businesses are reopening. But the guidance, again, I'm stressing this, the guidance hasn't changed. If you are not an essential business, you cannot open at this point. I think it's in June or July, I think it is, that they're going to issue further guidance. But at this stage, remain closed.
Okay. So Hassan, if we stay with you for the second question. So somebody asked, will there be restrictions on my business when I reopen it? Does that kind of depend on what kind of business it is?
Yeah, so with the reopening, it's going to be a staggered approach. From our understandings and conversations we've had, for example, the leisure and hospitality industry, we do not see that reopening in its capacity as it was for quite a while. And again, we think that the approach to reopening businesses is going to be staggered. So essentially, first it will be the smaller businesses, pubs, etc. I think that will be much further down the line. And when they do reopen, the key message at this point is social distancing. So regardless of what sector your business operates in, regardless of whether you remained open or if you closed, you need to maintain social distancing. So when it comes to restrictions on businesses, so for example, pubs and what have you, we don't see there will be restrictions on there, maybe reduced hours. It's something we're working on right now behind the scenes to put together a recovery plan, which will hopefully, once we've issued it, we are liaising with businesses to kind of understand their needs. But once we issue that, it will give a clearer indication of how businesses can reopen. But at this point, I think it's foolish to assume the second that you're allowed to open that is going to be business as usual. There will be restrictions in place.
So with that, sorry, go on.
Sorry, could I just ask, are non-essential shops due to open in June?
At this point, we don't know. It's in line with all we are doing at this stage is implementing the government guidance. So once it's announced, and usually in terms of the government guidance, we don't find out until kind of just before the announcement's made, or sometimes just after even. So at this stage, it is very much a case of once it's announced on a national level, we will then start implementing the policy based on that. But we have seen over the last week, as I was saying before, more inquiries coming in from businesses asking, can they open? What I'd recommend is if anybody's watching this, or if anybody has a business and they're thinking, okay, am I allowed to reopen, but they're not sure on what the guidance is, get in touch with Pendle Council. We'll look into what your business is and we'll come back to you with whether you can or cannot.
Okay, great. So this question is kind of looking into the future then, but what measures can we take as a small retail business to ensure the safety of our clients?
Okay, so with retail, I think they've got an advantage really in terms of the national retailers have stayed open. So they've kind of learned the best practices and they've adapted how they've been operating. So with these smaller local businesses, if you like, the retail businesses, it is going to be a case of look at what's going on the national level and implement the same policies. So if you look at, for example, your Sainsbury's local stores, there's going to be a restriction on number of customers that are allowed onto or into your shop at any one time. More importantly, once they're on your premises, you have to maintain social distancing. Look into, for example, the cough screens. And again, some businesses may decide to kind of have hand sanitizer for all customers when they come in into the premises, just to mitigate the risk. So what we're saying to retailers is look at what's gone on a national level, and they will have to, for their own safety, really. It makes sense to adopt the standards that have been set.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to question 4. So for Paul from the FSB, if we come to you first, Paul, how can I manage my cash flow or maintain a positive cash flow at this time?
I think the first thing to say is that we know how difficult it is for people at the moment, and that we've just done a survey actually in the last couple of weeks, so we've had the results through, and we know that there's over a third of businesses in the Northwest who've either not been able to pay their rent or are not going to be able to pay their rent in the next 3 months. So obviously as a key bill that you would normally pay, that gives you an indication of how important cash is at the moment. So it's really, in terms of the question, it's really a case of maximising the income you can bring in and limiting your outgoings wherever possible. So in terms of bringing money in, if you've got any outstanding invoices, which we know, I know speaking to businesses in East Lancs that there are a number of those. Can you chase those? Can you do anything to try and get that money in? Can you get a proportion of that money in? You know, would you consider something like invoice factoring or invoice discounting to basically take a smaller proportion of the overall just to actually get some of that money in? If that would make someone that owed you the money more likely to pay you quicker. We've actually got a debt recovery service that our members are using. So some people are looking at that way of doing things. There are other businesses that are looking at bringing in money through trying to get advance orders from customers. So I know a couple of businesses that operate in the kind of hair and beauty sector who've basically done an online raffle via Facebook for their customers. So you pay £5 and you go into a draw to win a kind of style and colour cut, if you like, valued at £100, and basically a number of people put into that, and it's just a way of bringing in advance income for a service to be delivered at a later point. So there are ways you can bring in money if you think outside the box a little bit. In terms of the other side of things and outgoings, it's difficult, but are the payments that you can defer? I think one of the areas that businesses are not fully kind of getting up to speed with at the moment is if they've got outstanding rent payments with their landlord, potentially they're in quite a good position to negotiate at least a deferral, if not a reduction. Just thinking through that. So if you're in a premises and your landlord's needing their rent, if you're actually struggling to make that rent, because of the current situation, which I know a lot of people are, the landlord's in a position where if they try to get heavy-handed and they're going to threaten you with eviction, how easy are they going to find? How easy are they going to find it to get new tenants in to their premises? I would imagine it wouldn't be easy at all at present. So it's probably in their interest to be, if possible, looking at making sure their tenants are looked after, understanding their needs at the moment, and if possible, kind of discounting the costs for them. So there are things I think that you can do. Beyond that, you know, there's, in terms of the access to finance angle, I mean, we may come on to this shortly, but there are obviously grants and there are the bounce back loans that are available, particularly the bounce back loans, because they're interest free, I think are quite attractive to small businesses.
Okay, lovely. Catherine, have you anything to add on that?
Just to echo what Paul said, that if you do owe anybody money, whether it's rent or suppliers, ring them as soon as possible and come to some arrangements, talk to them. Everyone's going to be understanding, and check out what grants, because I know there's some businesses that haven't applied for the grants because they weren't, even though sometimes there's overload on information, isn't there, and they don't think it applies to them. So check out what grants are available and what loans are available.
Yeah, brilliant. Absolutely. Thank you. So question 5, go to Karen from Boost first on this one. How do I keep the workplace working effectively when we have people or everybody working from home?
Right, okay. I think it's important, if you're managing teams remotely, just to have that regular keep in touch meetings. So whether that's a daily huddle meeting in the morning or at the end of the day, and just being clear about pieces of work that are set to a team, clear deadlines that are in place, so the expectations on both parties are there. Making sure that staff have got the right equipment, just simple things like, you know, if everyone's rushed home with a laptop when lockdown was announced, the things like the monitors and the keyboards and the mouse, maybe even the chair, often get forgotten. I know some of my work colleagues have actually been into the office to get the chairs, so you don't end up with, you know, backs and things after lockdown. Making sure that staff are taking regular breaks, you know, working around each other where they can, making sure people do get a lunch break and they're not working, you know, really long hours. So I think that's important, just to keep everything going. If you're running an office premises where a lot of SMEs are, they may find actually that during lockdown, while staff have been working from home, there could be some budget savings being made on things like the energy, because we haven't got offices full of people all day long with lights on. So that's one small advantage. But I think in the main, there's a good working relationship between employers and employees, and the trust is in place. So I think you'll often find that staff are quite effective when they're working at home. They'll often do more, there's less distractions, so they could probably meet deadlines faster, and maybe the quality of work is higher as well. As we progress and the lockdown gets eased, we know that the government are announcing guidance on how to make the workplace COVID secure. There's lots of information. I've had a look myself on the gov.uk website, how to work safely, and then those guidelines are coming out so that offices and business premises can make sure that social distancing is adhered to once we come out of lockdown, and keeping the social distancing in place.
Okay, lovely. So Karen, stay with me for the next. Oh, sorry.
Can I just add to that? Just a couple of things that we did, because we have some home workers. To do a risk assessment as best you can, and there are lots of examples online of home working risk assessments, but also to check your insurance and all. Most employer insurance will cover home working, but it's worth checking those things. And then going back to work, because we're classed as essential workers, so we have been closed, but we are opening up again next week. And again, on the guidelines, on the government guidelines, there's loads of guidelines of offices, retail, on how to make your workplace secure. But there's a good poster that you can advertise in your premises to say that you followed the 5 steps to working safely together, which is a really good thing, I think, if you can advertise that for when businesses do open up, because it shows that you have tried to put everything in place where possible to make it safe to reopen and for your staff.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, thank you, Catherine. That's great. So question 6, going back to Karen first. Somebody's asked, how can I upgrade my website and digital marketing?
Okay. So now is the time to update the website. If you've got back-end access, then fine, you can do that yourself. If not, then speak to your provider and see if you can gain access. If there's a charge, obviously just find out how much the charge is, have that conversation with them. Important to let your clients know that if you're open or not, and how you'll be implementing social distancing. If you have only a basic website and you're looking to sell online, if you normally retail, then maybe look at things like Facebook and set up a business page, get the attention on the other town groups and new clients, and direct that traffic to your page. And if you already have a page on Facebook, then don't forget to put up interesting and useful information. Sometimes it's nice just to put up, these images of a cute dog or a cute cat. It just keeps some interest on that news feed and makes clients come back, just puts a smile on people's faces as well. And if you're using social media, then everyone's spending a lot more time on it, so it does help people's mood as well. If you're not sure on the various webinars and things that are out there, then if you head to the Boost Business Lancashire website, all the events are on there. We're running lots of different webinars and masterclasses, so that can really help businesses understand, the marketing needs and things on there. There's lots of digital marketing opportunities, and some companies even offer a free assessment as well. So if a business is looking to literally take a whole new area online, then it may be worth reaching out to one of those organisations and just seeing about a free assessment and what can be done, and then they can make use of it.
Okay, lovely. Paul, have you got anything to add to that from an FSB perspective?
I think it is definitely. I know it's a really difficult situation at the moment, and it does present so many challenges. But I think it also presents opportunities for people to kind of take a step back and review how your business is working. Too often we speak to so many small businesses, and they never have the time to actually take a step back and and have that kind of strategic overview of how the business is operating. And I think there's a real opportunity at the moment to do that. That's been forced on us to some extent, but a real opportunity to think differently and start to think about the way that your business operates. So it might be trying a different type of social media than you've used before, or even using Zoom or these other platforms to actually do some kind of online networking. There's loads of opportunities now where before you might have had to physically travel to go to an event, and it'd be a couple of hours out of your day. Now you can do things in a different way. So I think there are some kind of forced positives out of this situation.
Okay, I mean, the next question was how can I identify new potential customers and markets? So it's kind of what you're talking about, looking at different areas and pivoting and maybe selling online if you're not already selling online. So what advice would you give to somebody that's kind of trying to find?
Yeah, again, a similar point, I suppose. It's take that chance to look at what you do. I mean, what aspects of your business are working well? What aspects maybe aren't working as well? Are there different ways you can deliver what you currently deliver? Number of people now doing things online in terms of online delivery of things they would have done face to face before, like training, and seeing it as an opportunity to trial different things. So I think that's the kind of key, really. It's a bit of trial and error with it, but don't be scared of trying different things, I think is what I would say, because most businesses have tried things in the past and maybe failed once or twice before they've gone on to things and done, and had great success. So, see what works, play around with different platforms and see what can work for you while you've got the time at the moment and you're probably not at full capacity. So I think the online side is definitely an aspect of that in terms of finding new customers and markets. And there's going to be new businesses coming out of this, as someone else said earlier on. So it's an opportunity, I think, for people.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Yeah, absolutely. Going back to something we were talking about earlier, just before the call started, between panel. There's been a question about redundancies in the local area. So what has been the impact of local business with regards to redundancies so far, and how many have been affected? Now, I don't think we really know this for the local area. So Hassan, can I just come to you?
Yeah, so obviously in terms of businesses affected in Pendle, we don't have that data yet. But as you mentioned, we were having a discussion prior to this session starting about new claims. It was announced today that new claims are higher than they have been in a while. So what we need to factor with that is that, as per the government guidance, a number of individuals who may have been self-employed or who were running their own businesses, they have been advised to claim for universal credits. So although claims have gone up, that headline figure, it may be skewed a little bit in terms of being higher than it actually is, as some businesses, whilst the lockdown, they've closed the business and they've gone on to universal credits, and they have the full intentions of, once the restrictions are eased a little bit, to coming off universal credits and running the business again. Having said that, I've also got some other data here which shows that companies going into liquidation for this year, there's a 322% increase in May's figure compared to May 2019. And also on a national scale, in terms of companies going into liquidation in the Northwest, it's at 986. So inevitably there will be redundancies as businesses go under. But the headline figure from today, I don't think we should take that on face value. What we also need to factor in is that the furlough scheme, for example, is helping businesses retain a lot of employees. And we need to see, and again, this will become apparent in August when it drops to 60%, and in October when it ends, how that impacts redundancies as well. So unfortunately, kind of at this stage, I think it's too early to say what the exact figures are, but I'm more than certain that the DWP and the job centres have got a strategy in place to help individuals who will.
I think just to come in on that, I think the furlough scheme, we'll all recognise the furlough scheme's probably saved a lot more redundancies. However, as Hassan said, it's going to get pulled. It's going to get kind of pulled back and pulled down to different levels in the next few months. But no doubt it's going to have saved a lot of jobs, at least in the interim. The other pressing concern, though, for a lot of small businesses are their other overheads, those premises costs I mentioned before, where they're still having to make, payments on other things without really much of an income coming in, if any income coming in. And as we start to move out of the lockdown situation, I think the biggest concern for the smallest businesses is whether the demand is going to be there so that they can actually make any kind of comfortable level of sales to actually pay those other overheads, forgetting the staff costs just for a minute. So that's the kind of gap at the moment, and there's a lack of confidence, I think, amongst businesses. Whether they're currently trading at low levels or whether they're not trading at all. It's a bit of a guess as to what the demand's going to be in a month or two's time.
Absolutely. In fact, the next question, which was for the DWP, so I'm not sure if I mentioned earlier, the DWP have taken some questions that we've been sent and they've answered them for us, but as Ozzy's not able to be here due to technical difficulties today, so I've got the answers. But yeah, the next question was from somebody saying, very sadly, I might have to make some of my staff redundant. Can DWP help us as a business, and can they help our staff? So I put this to the DWP. They said they are supporting businesses, and there's government support for businesses as well. They've got something called the Rapid Response Service that they've set up. There's up-to-date presentations and fact sheets that can be emailed or delivered digitally to the workforce. They can also offer support to retrain, upskill, develop a CV, develop interview techniques, improve interview techniques, and a whole range of professional help. I know Inspira are involved with that on a Pendle level as well. And they can support businesses through that. Obviously, whether you're their HR contact, if you remember the FSB, we can support you. So Hassan, have you got anything to add to that from a Pendle Council perspective?
Yeah, so again, with the council, we work quite closely with the DWP. Obviously, in terms of our role in this instance, it will probably be very much around signposting to the relevant contacts within DWP. So we've got contacts I know we operate Pendle, but we have individuals who may work in Pendle but live in Burnley or further afield. So we've got contacts at the various job centres that we can put them in touch with. And in terms of support, again, it will be kind of linking in with Boost as well to an extent to see for businesses that may be on the cusp, or they may be thinking, right, we have to make some redundancies. It may be a case of signposting them towards Boost to see if they can stop the decline further. So it is very much our role will be working with partners to help the business gain the most relevant and up-to-date information and support.
Okay, thanks, Hassan. Does anybody have anything to add with that?
I think that's just picking up on what Hassan said there. We are seeing that businesses, when they come into Boost, I can think of a couple that have really diversified and seen it almost as an opportunity, and worked out a plan to go forward and moving into those new markets. So it's not all doom and gloom. The opportunities are out there.
Brilliant. Now, interestingly enough, that takes me on to the next question, which is kind of the opposite, which is my business has grown very rapidly. I'm struggling to meet demand. How can I quickly recruit the right people? So again, we've got some information through from Ozzy at the DWP about that. They've got a team of local employer advisors, and I know sort of one of them, Penny from Inspira, who can support businesses in taking on the right people. So obviously there's no face-to-face service currently, but they're using digital methods to manage recruitment and offering a tailored recruitment service. And again, there's a network of external partners, so it'll be working with Boost, working with Growth Lancashire, Pendle Council, obviously, who can offer upskilling. And there's a new employer help website from the DWP, which offers a range of advice to help your business overcome challenges as well. So that's whether you need to expand, worried about redundancies, advice on next steps. So that's something that's just been sorted out. So Karen, have you anything further to add on that at all?
Yeah, I think that's a really positive message out there, and certainly there's lots of business support. Again, around recruitment, around upskilling people. there's the events and the webinars, as I mentioned earlier as well. So there's definitely the tools and services out there to help businesses to, you know, recruit and make sure that the skills are in place or upskill if needed.
Okay, brilliant. Anybody else got anything to add on that before I move on?
Yeah, I can just briefly, I think there's a HR angle on that as well, isn't there? Depending on what your business does, it might actually be quite tricky to be taking on quite a few new people if they might be working from home, or if you're trying to bring them into a setting where you're trying to implement the social distancing guidelines. So probably quite challenging in some ways. So definitely I would say look to get some HR advice on making sure that you're doing that in the right way. And obviously, of course, you know, the flip side of the unemployment situation is it should be quite a good labour market in terms of getting people who are looking for work. But again, about recruiting the right people, I suppose is challenging, isn't it? Because obviously at the moment, as I assume, if you want to take people on, it's not going to be a case of coming for an interview. So there's going to have to change the way that we recruit people as well, I think. So everything's going to be a little bit different.
Yeah, absolutely. So another question that came through, which we did cover this morning in the financial session that we had, but it's also been asked for this one, is can I trade as self-employed while I'm furloughed? And the DWP got back on that and said, yes, basically. You're allowed to take another job while you're furloughed. And I asked, because I wasn't sure whether it was an owner-director that had asked that or an employee, and they said, actually, if you really wanted specifics on that, speak to HMRC, but from their point of view, they see no difference between that. So if you're furloughed, you're furloughed. So yes, you can take on self-employed work. There would possibly be a distinction of where you are an owner-director business doing something that you do normally, then going and doing it self-employed probably isn't right. But you'd have to check that with HMRC, because offering your normal service as you self-employed is technically you still offering that service. So you shouldn't be taking a furlough payment when you're doing that, because you can only undertake your director responsibilities within your company. So yeah, the message is yes, you can, but that will all count. You'll have to declare it, so it will count towards your income, obviously. If somebody is getting universal credit at the same time as being on furlough, then any money you are earning will then affect that. So you'll need to declare that again, and you'll probably lose that universal credit. And something to just mention as well that we mentioned earlier in the financial session, which DWP did say, is people looking to claim universal credit at whatever point, be aware that as soon as you put in for universal credit, any working tax credits stop and they will not restart afterwards. So if you're in receipt of working tax credit, watch out and see whether it's worth you going down the universal credit route. So question 11, we'll come to Jonathan for this. So it's quite a long one, but I didn't know how much money I had in the business, so it took me some time to figure out whether we'd be okay or not. How do I stay on top of that going forward and know how much money I have at any given time? Is there some software I can use?
Yes, well, I mean, it's a really good business practice to be really up to date with financial position, and like Paul said, people have been using this time, you know, to sort of take stock, and instead of running about, you know, desperately trying to spin plates and all the time, where the accounting can sort of get left behind a little bit. I think this has been an opportunity for business to really get up to date with their position. I mean, there is lots of good online accounting software available where you pay monthly, and you know, it's normally not more than like 15-20 pounds a month that you pay for the online accounting, and it's well worth having something like that, because you can enter into the accounting money that you owe, money that you're owed. You can put your sales invoices in there, so you're not just looking at the bank account all the time thinking if there's money in the bank, that's good. If it's not good, because what's important is what you might be owed and also what you might be owing as well. So it sounds like this question is from somebody who's perhaps been a bit behind in looking at the overall picture, you know. So you need to be aware of what you're liable for, as well as what you're owed. what assets you've got, and so on, borrowings, etc. So yeah, online accounting. There's some good deals. I mean, just to mention one, QuickBooks is possibly the most cost-effective one for a smallish business, because they offer big discounts for 6 months. It's important to get one that allows you to enter bills to pay, because some of the cheaper options are just work as cash books. They don't let you actually put bills on. So that's sort of how to make sure you're up to date. There's also a point about looking forward as well, because we get a lot of questions about how do you look forward and sort of forecast ahead. That's a slightly different sort of tool. You're best off with a spreadsheet for that sort of thing. Do a monthly cash flow forecast going forward. There's a number available. It doesn't have to be complicated. You can build it up from simple basis. Sales forecast is the primary thing to kind of start with. Set yourself realistic targets, and then layer in all your costs, maybe your variable costs, cost of sales, or your fixed costs. You want to make sure that you've got going to have enough in the business from the sales to pay for all your costs going forward, and it's well worth doing that as a sort of setback exercise. Once you're up to date with where you are now, forecast going forward, maybe at least a year, 2 years, preferably 3 years.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Jonathan. So that comes to the end of the questions that we had prior to the session. So Amber, have you got anything else you'd like to ask? Do unmute yourself before you ask it.
Got TV on in the background and children. I was just wondering what everybody thought about going back to an office scenario. So the landmark has reopened, but we're not planning immediately to move back to the office. It's different if you're manufacturing and you've got business space and that kind of thing, but just for office life, if anybody any thoughts on that, whether that'll go back to normal?
Shall I go first?
I'm just about bringing all our staff back to work gradually. Sorry, can you hear?
Yeah.
Oh, my internet's just gone a little bit there. So because we're a member-facing organisation, we really need people back in the office. So we are gradually bringing staff back. We've just started this week, and we will be opening to the public next week. We just have to bring in more social distancing measures, make sure everything's safe, maybe stagger a few hours, maybe keep a couple more people at home. But I think for us, getting back the team in the office is really important to us. So you just have to plan different things. And as I say, the post of that, the government guidelines, there are some good guidelines that you can look at and think about, and just replan your office, and just do it slowly and get plenty of PPE and just make sure it's about making sure people feel safe as much as anything else. Don't force it on anybody. Although staff do need to come back to work at some point if they need to. But it's just keeping them safe, really, and rethinking things. Yeah. And it's actually, for us, my staff are really looking forward to coming back. And the ones that have come back, even though they were a little bit nervous at first, they have soon got used to the social distancing and the new cleaning guidelines and things that we've put in place. And they're actually really pleased to be back. It's kind of a little bit going back to normal, and it's good. The social interaction at work is very important, I think, sometimes.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think there's definitely issues that we're picking up around negative impacts on people's mental health of not being able to get out and about and see people and see colleagues, and Zoom's great and stuff, but it's still nice to actually have face-to-face literally on occasion. So I think that is a really important aspect. I can see things changing maybe gradually back. So maybe working a couple of days from home, a couple of days in the office, that kind of thing. Because I think particularly office-based businesses, where that is a big overhead for them, the premises costs, are realising that if they're organised and they give the staff kind of task-based work to do, you don't physically need them all to be sat together all the time, working kind of 9 to 5 hours. I think a lot of people have realised, under the current situation, it's complicated by the fact, obviously, schools are still in the main going to be closed. There's going to be childcare issues. So there's a lot of people that are going to have to weigh up whether they can afford to, pay for childcare so that they can go back to work, or whether they do it. It's going to be quite complicated, I think, for employers. But overall, I think what Catherine said is right in terms of getting people back into that, because especially when you're working in a team, it's not great to be working at home all the time on your own.
No, and similarly in terms of we've looked at this as a local authority, and it comes back to offices may be different. You still have to maintain social distancing once you're within the office. So whether that is a staggered approach, as to some members of the team are in on one day, and then a different member of the team who sits nearby is on the second day, or however it is. But it is, the essential message is to maintain social distancing. And then the other kind of key issue that's becoming apparent with this is hot desking in kind of the modern workspace. Rather than having a fixed desk or a fixed workspace, it is very much a case of your hot desking. Now, how that, I think, to an extent, will have to come to an end in the interim anyway, because it's about maintaining that cleanliness as well. Are you going to sanitize every workspace at the end of each day? Which, it may not be feasible. So it may be a case of going back to having, this is your desk, you're in on this day and you're using that desk. So I think, especially with the landmark, obviously, is the type of businesses that are in there. They are quite dynamic businesses. So that the hot desking policy will need to be looked at as well.
Anybody else got anything to add on that? No. So are Plus 24 doing an Amber? Are you staying at home for the foreseeable, or?
Yeah, we can all work from home really easily, so we'll just be working from home all this time. Like I said, Landmark's now reopened, but we've got no plans to immediately rush back. We're all sat quite close together, and the Landmark itself, the co-working, is open and they've got all the measures in place, but we've just got no real need to go back to the office, so we're just carrying on for now.
Yeah, fair enough. Alison, have you got anything you'd like to ask?
No, just we're looking at a phased return, and we've had a survey sent out about how we feel about returning to work and that sort of thing. But I've been getting requests, obviously looking at apprenticeships and young people going back into with employers and that sort of thing, and looking at doing virtual work experience. And I'm just wondering about how we could go about with working with businesses to be able to sort of provide a virtual experience. I think moving forward, it's going to be a long time before external visitors are allowed back into, into placements and things like that. And it's going to massive impact on the apprenticeship sort of overview of what's going on. And just working with local businesses about how we could perhaps put something together and that sort of thing, really, I think is something to perhaps have a look at. Just ideas, really.
Mm.
Can I come in on that? I think it's the sensible option is going to be more project-based activity. The real life brief kind of idea that businesses give a group of students or an individual student an issue to work on, and then they feed back to them, so they don't physically need to be there, but they get an element of that real life experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Alison, have you spoken to any of the Inspire team?
Yeah, I'm in contact with Penny Hayes.
Right.
I'm an employability advisor. I go in and do things, and I go in secondary schools and all that sort of thing. And yeah, I've been linking with Penny and the ideas that they've been sort of generating from that. But I'm also on the link with career leads in schools as well.
Right.
The impact particularly on year 11s and what's going to happen. Neat situation sort of leading up to Christmas is going to be quite bad, I think. no exact numbers, and we won't know that until September, linked with colleges and what's going to happen. But yeah, I'm in contact with Penny, so putting things together. So yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Well, any more questions from anybody? No. Thank you very much, panelists, and thank you, attendees, for being here today. So we've recorded this. It will be available either later on today or tomorrow as well. So thank you all for giving your time for this. Much appreciated, and I'll catch up with you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.